were just discussing on what and how to go about discussing cricket and media. I think we all kind of agreed upon one solitary line, which is pretty much cricket and media. First up, can they get married? And if yes, they do marry, can they live happily together? So that's the broad idea under which we are about to discuss. So the various facets that we'll be taking you through is obviously, gentlemen towards my right have got years and years of experience. I should be saying decades of experience in the world of journalism. So we shall hear from them in terms of what media really was when they started off, and how media transformed, or how the number of people, the population increased as far as media is concerned, when people like me just about entered, and how it is shaping up today. And I think during the course of the discussion, we shall also talk about how easy or difficult is it to enter into media and therefore be presenters and columnists and commentators and stuff like that. So that's really the idea of discussion. And also another important aspect of discussion that we will be having over the next 25, 30 minutes is the fact that do cricketers, do sports people trust Indian journalists? And do Indian journalists trust sports people and cricketers? So and therefore we'll also come to the editorial part of different newspapers, the different styles of newspapers, the editorials therefore of different channels. Some might want to focus a bit more on a few things, whereas the others might want to focus on something completely different. So these are the broad areas under which we'll be talking about. Feel free, of course, towards the end of this session to jump in with whatever questions that you really have. So with the kind of experience that, Clayton, I remember distinctly about 10 years back, knocking at Midday's door and saying that, look, Clayton, I'm ready to do anything. I was from the corporate world. I said, I don't want to pursue, I did my MBA, I was a part of a corporate structure. I said, I want to give up that kind of life. I want to be a part of sports journalism. I remember coming to you and said, give me anything that you want, I'll be doing it. I remember distinctly the first time you did a piece where I contributed with some stats. And I was so happy that it said, with stats contributed by Radhakrishnan. So that was my moment of joy, really. So tell me something, how much has journalism per se progressed? How has the press box changed, really, Clayton, from where you started? I don't want to make you sound really old, but from where you started to where it is now.
It's changed, definitely. Makarand would know better. Earlier, there was only a handful of journalists coming to cover a game. I'm talking about a Ranji game. A test match will obviously attract a better crowd.
Mark a year, or give me a year. Which year or around which period of time that you're talking about?
I think 2001, 2002.
Okay,
things really changed there. Where you could get a crowd, even for a press box crowd, even for a Ranji game. So I think the start was there. It peaked during 2007, 2008, and it's gone from strength to strength. So,
Makarand, if I can take you back a few years, seriously, long back. How was the press box then? What was it like? Because when we enter the press boxes these days, it's pretty much air-conditioned. You have the fancy laptops. You've got everybody chatting as though they know more than the cricketers themselves. How was it then? How was your interaction with the cricketers therefore?
I got into journalism in 1969. And,
precisely 9 years before I was born, really. I have to emphasize. Yeah, go on.
And the first series that I covered was in 1972, the first test match at Delhi against MCC. Those days it was MCC and not England. The press box was on the ground floor, and all those English journalists, Jim Swanton, Crawford White, Peter Laker, Mike Brearley was there for first two test matches. Tiger Pataudi was there. And they would carry their wine bottle and champagne and all that, set all the reference material. And there were no laptop and all that at that time. All those rickety old typewriters, everybody checking their carbon copies and everything. And the match would start at 10:30. That was a very, very cold morning. First day it was about 12 or 13 degrees. And in the press box opened right near the boundary. And they said, come on, good morning, gentlemen. How's everything? What do you do? And all that. All the friendly atmosphere, wishing everybody and all that. I'm doing that. And suddenly Jim Swanton said, oh my God, I lost my wisdom. And there was Maharaja Baroda standing. Good, you haven't lost your wisdom. And there used to be a lot of fun. And over the years, I found well, the journalism, the competition, I will call competition like, oh, he's got a story, I must get a story. And those were the days where the press box was totally different, the relations were totally different. Now things have changed. Things have really changed drastically.
I mean, when you talk about relationships being changed, obviously he's talking more in terms of the confidentiality clause that really doesn't exist anymore, isn't it? That's exactly what he's emphasizing. There was a time when obviously the cricketers or the sports people could come and just about discuss anything under the sun, and they know that a certain section of journalists will not leak, within quotes, it to the media there. So is that really the biggest issue when it comes to the relationship that exists or perhaps doesn't exist to some quarters between the cricketers and the media?
Yeah, trust is an issue. If you don't have his trust, he won't tell you anything. And I mean, you can't betray him. And once he's betrayed by even someone close to you, he doesn't talk to you. You know, he'll just distance himself. But I think more than the trust now is that you can't get near the players.
Why? Why has it come to
Because of
such a
systems.
situation?
I mean, maybe because of security, or chiefly security, and the boards ruling everything. I mean, there's no other cricket board than the Indian board which stonewalls any media activity.
Okay, so I mean, if you were to give the benefit of doubt at all to the board, from their perspective, are they turning around and saying that, look, the volume of people have increased so much, the kinds of stories that are generated in the press these days could be so frivolous from something that they perceive to be happening that they don't trust media in general overall, which means that besides the sample set which is responsible for this, the entire community gets a bit generalized. Would you both concur on that? And therefore, you know, they are bound by what they have done, really.
I can understand the board's view.
Yeah.
I can understand, there's too much of media. It can get uncontrollable. But the thing is, if you have a relationship with a player, you should be allowed to go ahead with that relationship. But here what happens, because of the rules, you can't even get to a player who you know.
Okay, I would say like this, that we would have, at the end of the day's play, we would have a drink together near the swimming pool or something like that. A lot of stories we would discuss, but no, I never ever saw the journalists writing about it. Today, forget about that, they will create a story, and then that creates a controversy. I tell you, I was witness to a lot many things, which in today's time, if one story is, my God, the television will go on entire day.
Yeah.
And the things have changed completely like that. The relations of the players, I'm telling you one thing, I'm being blunt here, RK. The modern journalists who cover cricket have no clue about technique. Throw them a ball and ask them to show grip of off spin or leg spin or in swing or out swing, nothing they know. But you ask them about who is going with whom and how many affairs everybody has. Even the person who is having affair or not, he may not know the numbers. But earlier time, all those journalists, K.N. Prabhu, G.K. Menon, Rajan Bala, they would discuss technicalities with Jaisima and Tiger Pataudi, and they would be sitting with them having a drink and then discussing cricket. So you would read only cricket. Yesterday our guru, my guru, D.K. Ratnagar passed away. D.K. was a great human being, great journalist, an all-round journalist. Cricket, hockey, squash, everything. And in fact, Nari Contractor commented yesterday that we trusted Dicky. Why? Because on the tours, so many things were happening, but Dicky would stick to only cricket. And this morning, Bishan Bedi called up and said, there were on 1976 tour of West Indies, oh my God, there were so many things happening. But Dicky never ever, today's journalists are only looking, the umpire says play. These people will leave the press box and hover around there, they will go, this fellow's story, planting story, this story, and then all of you read. And then you form opinion, which is very bad.
Yeah, so
the cricket has to be reflected in the copy.
So they play their own game. So that's
they play their own game.
Okay. So, yeah, go on.
I just want to relate an example
Sure.
of how certain journalists are respected. There was a journalist in Australia called Ray Robinson. You should call him Sugar Ray Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson.
Every day, 1 hour before play could end, would uncork 2 bottles of beer. Because Ray Robinson had a problem with his stomach. He couldn't consume fresh beer. So just to get Ray Robinson into the dressing room to discuss the day's play, he would uncork 2 beer bottles and tempt him to come to the dressing room. And they would discuss the day's play for 2 hours with Ray Robinson. That's how close Ray Robinson was. That's the kind of respect players had for journalists.
Today, today's journalists and today's players are not enjoying the game. It's money, money, money everywhere, and they create that competition. That was not the case when I started my journalism. When I was with Sportsweek from 1970, 2 people, me and my boss, that is Sharad Kotnis, and there were nothing of that. So, we would carry those galleys and all that Clayton to one press, and I would go in the morning, Monday morning, I would go home after 24 hours. So when I went late on the first day of Diwali, my mother said, either you stay in this house or I stay in this house. So this is how we used to work. The other day when I called up somebody from Times of India and he said, where are you? He said, I'm sitting on the Vashi station filing a copy. I said, filing a copy on Vashi station? Yeah, on mobile. We were mobile. Today's journalists file their copies on BlackBerry, which is not there. We were taught you got to go watch and write what you watch, not what others tell you. Today you get a call, oh, so and so, what do you think about it? Means these people want everything over there, and they have become Google journalists.
Understandably. I mean, much of what he's saying is obviously what is seen on the ground. What has led to this particular situation? Are we not willing to discuss strictly cricket? Or are the market forces really demanding us to give us more than just cricket? Because, I mean, I'm asking you purely because you come from an organization which, of course, concentrates heavily on cricket, but you like a bit of a color in that particular story because that's your editorial call. So, when do we stop seeing cricket strictly as cricket? And when do we want to feed that extra bit to the audience? And when do these things blur and therefore we can't see a clear picture?
Look, there's no doubt that there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to get the inside story. There's a lot of pressure to get the side story. Let's be fair. You watch the television, you get the best commentators to comment on it. Every decision is commented on. Probably editors don't want the same thing to be repeated the next morning. And that's a fair point. At the same time, you want to draw a line. You want to draw a line when it comes to a spicy story. I mean, if you don't have proof and if you don't give the other party a chance to talk, then the story shouldn't go in.
So you're effectively talking about the according to sources stories.
Yes.
Because I mean that's something that we commonly see.
There's too much of that happening.
Yeah.
There's too much of that happening.
Is it more creative writing than true journalism?
I don't think that's anything creative in that.
Creative in that person's own sense, just imagining things and putting pen to
No,
paper.
he's not imagining things. What he's doing is he's depending a lot on sources, which I have a problem with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have a problem with sources, are you saying that you've got a problem with the sources' stories or the sources itself, which could still be legitimate? There could still be a meeting that will be happening, and you could have somebody in the organization feeding somebody with the news, but you can't publish that person's name, therefore you're saying sources. So the source is still legitimate, but it is not legitimate for him to reveal his source.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
You cannot reveal your source.
Yeah.
That's a cardinal rule. You cannot reveal your source to anyone, even to your wife for that matter. But there should be a line drawn. If there's a chance or if there's a window to speak to the guy and get his version in the paper, then you should go out and do it. That's only right.
I'll tell you one incident.
Sure.
In the press box, there were some youngsters covering big matches at that time. They would never come prepared. This is, I'm talking about 1969-70. We were taught to come prepared. If you're covering a match, you must know everything, rules, regulation, everything. You must carry your reference material. There was one boy representing, I think, Indian Express. And this Ricky Ratnagar was he was a prankster, he was a mischievous fellow. And there was Ashok Mankar dropped a catch. I said, oh my God, this is 100 catch he dropped, 100 catch he dropped. Now, this is a fantastic story, he thought that youngster. So next day, box item, Ashok Mankar dropped 100 catch. Next morning at the Breville Stadium, We saw Ashok briskly walking towards the press box. The press box was in the first row. Dickey, sensing trouble, ran away, and he came and said, "Gentlemen, who is the person who wrote that 100 catch?" He said, "Sir, I wrote. That's my story, sir, my story. You know, I got it from sources, sir." He was a South Indian fellow. "Sources, sir." He said, "Okay. Then you must be having the list of 99, no? If you have said 100, then you must be having the list of 99. He said, "No, I don't have the list." Ashok used the language, it was unpalatable. No, this is something was happening, but now this sort of thing is happening regularly. Regularly. I don't feel like reading because they're factual mistakes. We keep on talking. What is this happening now? This was not the case earlier.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, when you're talking about an era where, I mean, you didn't have technology, you didn't have the likes of Google, and therefore the onus was really on the individuals to get across and find out, hunt for details, quite literally. I mean, I remember, while covering, say, athletics, for example, the standard source for information was not necessarily Google, because athletics, Indian athletics, you don't have information even on Google. So you probably get across to Mr. K.P. Mohan from The Hindu because he's been a doyen, and so you find out how and stuff, especially in doping-related cases, you understand the sample testings and stuff like that. But tell me something, when it comes to cricket, almost every information is available on the internet. So are the youngsters, are the modern-day journalists taking a bit of an easy route saying that, look, I've got internet connectivity at the press boxes, I've got my MacBook Air, I've got my BlackBerry, I've got my S4s of the world, so I can just go there, Google it out, and quickly, whatever information that I have, I've got the websites like Cricinfo, so whatever information that I need, relevant then and there, I can get it then and there. So why do I need to break my head at my house and come prepared? Is that the attitude?
That could be the attitude because the tools are available for you. Yeah. Let's be fair. I don't think that we should be portraying a picture that the modern journalist doesn't work hard. He works bloody hard sometimes. Not all of them work hard, but a lot of them. Yeah. But if there are tools like Cricinfo and StatsGuru and things, why not? Where is the harm in doing that? As long as you're going to embellish your copy with that, that's fine with me.
So are you saying a section is not focusing really on the stories that need to be focused and are giving more time to areas that need not necessarily need to be focused?
That could be two-pronged.
Yeah.
One is the need, and one he genuinely feels that this could embellish his copy.
Okay.
But then there should be a tough policeman at the end of
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
When you're talking about a tough policeman, you're essentially talking about the editor.
Yeah, the sports editor.
The sports editor in an organization. So let's move on and talk about something different, about the pressures that you talked about. Now, there could be organizations which could focus on a particular aspect of the game. There could be other organizations which could say that, look, this is being consumed. If we have to penetrate the market even more, we'll focus on something very, very different, wherein probably the sport itself might get lost. So how much would you attribute to the editor who's sitting in and taking the calls? Because at the end of the day, the person who goes and covers will have to go by what the organization wants and therefore what the editor tells him.
I think these things can be settled.
Yeah.
As long as you reach a point where you think this is the best for the newspaper. I would think about the match. I would think about also that a lot has been dwelled on the match through TV, through the news channels. So if you can offer something different without taking away from the news of the day, I think that's fine.
Can you give us an example as to what could be atrocious in your view and what is bearable in your view and what can be used in your view in addition to what we have seen on TV?
For example, yes, if there's a Ranji game and if someone scores a 100, what is the most common thing to do? Go and talk to the batsman, which will be arranged. It's a pretty PR-driven thing. The batsman will talk. But what about the bowlers who bowl to the batsman? Does anyone talk to them? I would go to the bowlers and ask. I would go to the umpires and ask. Maybe that's a different start to take.
But Clayton, the thing is, they have been told not to talk to the press. What do you do?
I'm talking about a Ranji game. That's why I said
Ranji game. I watched Ranji game. At the end of
Test
Ranji
match
game,
and a one-day international is very mechanical now. You go to the press box, you see, you write, and you go to the press conference and file your copy, and that's the end.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's become too mechanical.
Clayton at one-day international or test matches, the media interviews are there. There is the media manager. Everything is very well organized, the television and everything. For Ranji Trophy, I see people walking all the way from the press box
To the
other end, and they're just standing over there, and nobody is a coordinator for the Ranji Trophy team Oh, can you please call? Hey, Ramesh, please come down. No, you're taken 5 wickets. Wait. Is this a way to do it? Yeah. If the board has appointed media manager for each association, it is his job. But media manager is not seen. He is seen only during the test matches.
Right. Okay, this brings me into an important relationship because
Not all test matches.
Not all. Yeah, true. This brings me to another important aspect that we witnessed firsthand. Just as we speak about the relationship that exists between the cricketers and the media, there is a relationship or the lack of it that exists between the cricketers and their media managers. I mean, we know for a fact that if it's an Australian media manager, we almost get daily updates on how Michael Clarke's back is, to what happened with Shane Watson, to where is Shane Watson now, why was David Warner reprimanded. You have a James Sutherland coming out and saying, boss, this is what happened, this is why he's been reprimanded, this is when he'll come back, depending on his behavior going forward. Now that's clarity. Now, in other systems, you might want to approach a player, the media manager conveys it to the player, but it really depends on how big or how small the media manager is. The cricketer could turn around and say, I might not want to do it. So how does that media manager and cricketer relation work? Because I want to follow a protocol, I follow, but it's not happening.
I think the basic problem, I think where you're heading it is Indian cricket. The basic problem in Indian cricket is that they don't want to do anything for the stakeholders of the game.
The audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to do something. So if you don't want to do something, then they'll not do it. Spoke about press releases.
Yeah.
Contrast those press releases to what the BCCI sends.
Oh my God.
No, is it
atrocious?
Is it clarity? I mean, that's a calamity.
I'll tell you clarity.
Sure.
About 3 or 4 years ago, I received this ACB of Cricket Australia. Adam Gilchrist's wife was 6 months pregnant, and she missed an appointment with a gynecologist. The next appointment was this day at this time. Just imagine. And over here, everything is known to the entire world. No press release from BCCI.
Is it a systemic thing? The way we operate in the society? Is it? I mean, I remember once I was having a chat with Wasim Akram. So when we often talk about the changes in captaincy in Pakistan cricket, he says that at the end of the day, it's a reflection of your system. You look at that particular country and say that there the prime ministers and the presidents and everybody keeps changing on and off. You don't know. I mean, somebody could be in exile. The next time the same person could come back and become the prime minister. So that is even reflected or carried forward even in the cricketing circle. So is it really endemic in your system that we have got this attitude as sabko to pata hai, isme kya batana kya hai? So is that really a systemic issue than a particular organizational issue?
Yes, there is a chalta hai attitude. But as I said, I mean, if you don't want to do something, then the establishment will want to do it. I mean, they send media managers. Now, for example, they're going to send a media manager to the West Indies. Now,
well, who has a vote?
Yeah, and that too is connected with the TNCA.
Correct.
And the father of a budding cricketer. After 2 tours, you'll not have a media manager. And no one can explain that. I mean, the arrogance is at that level that no one wants to explain things.
I'll tell you, RK, when I was CEO of Baroda Cricket Association, the Australians came there. And there was a pre-venue inspection team. The manager, the players that is Tim May, then the media manager, they would all come a month before. And I'm telling you, they were so systematic. They wanted to know where the media is going to stay and everything. The food, toilet, everything they checked. They took the photographs. Here, we don't have all that. I'm told by all these people who go on tours, the media manager doesn't make himself available at all. After the match, he just switches on the phone. So what poor fellow is supposed to do?
Talking about media managers, they come in all times. For example, there was a media manager went on a tour to Pakistan. He couldn't send an SMS to a journalist telling him that, practice is scheduled at this time. In contrast, the media manager on the 2007-2008 tour of Australia, Sridhar, was so good, and that's how that whole controversy regarding Harbhajan was handled so well. If you all remember that tour,
sure,
that controversy was handled so well because Sridhar was the manager. And I know for a fact that Sridhar even called press conferences at 2 a.m.
No, it has happened. I mean, I remember, when I started off my career, I remember going to the airport to follow the Australian cricket team. They were in Delhi. I think Taj Mansingh was where they were put up. So we went there, It was supposed to land at about 10 in the night, so we were there waiting for the Australian arrival shots. We love our arrival shots on television. So we were waiting there, and the flight got delayed. And it delayed by a good 1.5 hours. So it was about close to 12 by the time these guys got out of the airport. They were still smiling. They got into their team bus. There was a scheduled press conference at about 10:30 because they were expected to come around 9:30. So we went there and we said, you know, I mean, you don't expect them to come out at 2 in the morning to talk. I mean, how are you doing and how's the preparation and all that stuff, that the warm-up questions that they have. But to my surprise, the media manager came. We all were given a cup of tea that was arranged by the hotel. And at about 2 o'clock, you had, I think it was Adam Gilchrist who came in and attended the press conference with the coach of the cricket team. So obviously you're talking terrific sense of professionalism in keeping sync with what the audience wants. Now, just to drift away from the different kinds of editorials that we have, Makarand, if you look at what England has got to offer, you've got the tabloids. You've got everything running there like the Sun and probably the Daily Mail and stuff like that. At the same time, you've got sanctity preserved in a Guardian, in a Telegraph. I mean, if you want to call that sanctity, so the purists are very happy about it. So in that sense, how much have we attempted to preserve and how much have we said, that's fine. I mean, we need to cater a lot, so different sections, therefore things could get blurred.
I think we are halfway down the track there. I don't think we are completely tabloid, and I don't think we are completely broadsheet. Because if you were broadsheet, then the cricket correspondent, like for example in the London Times, Mike Atherton would write the match report of the day. Yeah. But we don't have that here.
Right.
And in a tabloid,
Should we have that? Do you see that happening going forward? A former cricketer coming down, sitting in the press box, observing a game. Derek Pringle does that. Michael Atherton does that, as you said. Do you see that happening in Indian cricket? Would you want to see that happening?
I would want to, but I don't think that would happen.
Why?
Because the writers who write the column a day late are in the commentary box. As long as you have that kind of a situation, you won't get cricket writers who are cricketers come and observe a day's play. I don't think that will happen. Mike Atherton also does commentary.
Yeah.
Mike Atherton, during the Calcutta Test match, he would finish his stint and then would come down and sit and have a tea. Same thing with Rahul Dravid. Last series. Rahul Dravid was doing with Jonathan Agnew and Boycott, and he would come down and have tea with us and go out there and sit with the crowd and then discuss. Because look, eventually they are all cricket enthusiasts. They may not be controllers of the game, but they love the game. They might give you 1 point here or 1 point there. So Mike Atherton would come in the morning, the game would start at 9:30, would be there at 8:15, reading Telegraph or carry his thing and then discuss. People used to go and just introduce it, which was not happening earlier. I have not seen Gavaskar going and sitting. And we will never see Sachin Tendulkar going and sitting because our thing is totally different here, Clayton. Do you think so?
Yeah, as I said, I don't see that happening. I don't see, for example, Ravi Shastri going to write the main match report of the day for the Times of India. I don't think that's practical.
Yeah, there is a section that believes that probably we might not need match reports per se because everything is so mobile, everything is available on TV. Even as these students sit here, they are checking constantly updates on Twitter. They are logged on to Facebook. Everybody knows what's happening in every part of the world. So do we really need, with due respects, match reports of what happened the previous night? Is that a question?
We need because these commentators, the biggest controversy is that these commentators are not allowed to say anything. BCCI.TV, contracted, 5 crores paid, no, can't criticize anything. Now, how do you get that? There was a big controversy. Gavaskar, Shastri refused to say anything about the conflict of interest because there's a clause over there in the contract, which is not the case over there. Nazir Hussain or Michael Atherton, they're doing it. And they talk about it because that is what is required.
But strictly the game per se. I mean, when I'm saying match report, from a print point of view, I'm strictly talking about day one started with so-and-so batting. At lunch, there was so-and-so, a couple of wickets fell down, overcast conditions. This happened over the next 2 hours. After tea, the batsman once again settled down, played. At the end of the day, it's 310 for the loss of 4 wickets. Do we need that the following morning anymore?
No, you don't need that, but you need creativity, which will come in.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the challenge for every writer. There are 10 ways of writing, but he can still thrill the reader next morning.
Okay.
No, take the case of Sanjay Manjrekar and Kapil Dev. Kapil Dev, legend. But he keeps on repeating the same thing. Whereas Sanjay Manjrekar is so creative. He gives you something to think. And you can discuss, oh, Sanjay Manjrekar said this. And then people will discuss in the bar. Will they discuss Kapil Dev? Clayton imitates him very, very well. Clayton, please do that.
No, it's okay.
Just come on, play well, bowl well, come on, enjoy the game. Apart from that, what else can you talk?
That's exactly what happened when he was coach.
Now also is happening the same thing. So you have to have, look at this Michael Holding, Archerton, David Lloyd, Nazir Hussain discussing the technique and what could happen. They are not astrologers, but they at least take you over there. Look, the cloud is over there, the wind is over, the ball is going to move sideways, and the graphics are there to show. If you don't understand what is soft hand, they will show what is soft hand. But the viewers are, and the listeners are not expected to know. But here, that sort of thing, I'm not talking about IPL. IPL is all bakwas. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about serious cricket, test cricket. And that is what is required.
Coming to the point of IPL, now that he's talked about IPL, now, the school of thought is about proliferating the game called cricket to newer audiences. Yes, it's a beautifully marketed product. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Yes, it's had its controversies. But you can't deny the fact that it has gotten newer audiences to the game. So take us through what IPL has done, really, or has it done anything at all?
RK, I would like to ask you this question. I have nothing against IPL. It's a great product. It's a credit to the BCCI. This is an envious product. But tell me, if this product is causing evil in the game, would you want it to run?
Yes, I mean, anything that is evil, you might not want it. Anything that is evil. I mean, see, when it comes to, if you're talking strictly in terms of the fixing allegations that has surrounded IPL, there was a point in time when you had the Nagpur One Day International featuring India and South Africa, where Derek Crooks bowled the first few overs. You said, I mean, that had an issue. The test match that featured where the innings was forfeited when Nazir Hussain was the captain and, of course, Hansi Cronje was the captain. So test cricket also has had its taints. One-day cricket has seen a slip. T20, yes, obviously during IPL has seen a few blips. There is no doubt about that. So in that sense, is it right to make IPL a bit of a villain and say that no fixing whatsoever? For example, I mean, Salman Butt and Mohammad Amir and the others got doing something wrong during Test match cricket, not necessarily during T20 cricket. So would you say at some level it boils down to the individual and not necessarily to the form of cricket?
In IPL's case, it does boil down to the concept of the product. The concept of the product lends itself to a lot of glamour. And from glamour, the evil is spreading. So you got to look at that aspect.
Well, okay.
Fine, I get
right.
your point about
yeah.
fixing happening at other avenues.
It has happened.
Yes.
I'm not saying it has happened. Yeah.
And the players have not learned from that.
Yeah. What's glamour? I mean, tell me what is glamour? I mean, are you talking about what happens post-cricket matches? Are you talking about the money, which is a part of the glamour? Are you talking about, what define glamour really?
I'm talking about what happens post-match. And I'm talking about what happens before the game.
Okay.
We hear that the team owners pick the side. And who are the team owners? The most glamorous people in Indian
Okay.
sport.
So would you say, I mean, you've got the English Premier Leagues running successfully. You've had the investments coming in from the Qatari owners, for example. City, big time. You've got a couple of Spanish clubs where the Qatari owners have put in money. So are you saying the big bucks, when they come in from Abramovich, for example, the big man in Chelsea Football Club, are you saying when it comes to big money, you cannot guarantee the integrity of a sport?
Yeah, it just gives you one more reason to be corrupt.
I mean, is it happening
It
only
needs
here?
thorough
Because
policing. To provide that policing, then the product should not go on.
okay, just coming back, raining a bit about what we were initially starting off with. So one final comment before I can throw it to the floor, really. Where do you see journalism headed? Are you happy with the way it is headed? And where do you see it in about, say, 5-10 years from now? Same, of course, to Martin this way.
Well, as long as your thrust is on breaking news, I don't see it heading in the right direction.
Okay.
I think breaking news has ruled over everything and spoiled a lot of things.
I would say that we have the sports journalists associations, federation, it is their duty to guide the youngsters. They should have those classes. We were lucky that D.K. Ratnagar was guiding us. Today, when so many things are happening, mass communication is a career, then I think somebody should, I mean, there are classes, but there are no classes for sports journalism as such. Then one can specialize in cricket and football. Today, what is happening is everybody is going for the same, football, cricket, kho-kho, kabaddi, everybody is writing the same thing. So we should have proper classes, proper guidance to be for the youngsters, and then they will realize where they stand. Clayton is a vice president of the Sports Journalists Association of Mumbai. Clayton, you should take it up, because I find many people ask me, sir, where do I go and where do I say? And similarly, they must be asking you. So obviously, they're looking for a guidance, and we must guide them properly, because we were guided. And I guide people, tell me, look, this is not the way to go about. This is the way to go about. Now, for past 4 days, there's only one thing you are reading, that whether Dalmia will attend ICC or Srinivasan will attend ICC. What difference does it make? Both of us are 70-year-old. Yeah, what difference? And why should we read that on sports page? There are performers who should be there on sports page. Why should we have that on the sports page? Dalmia is, then there was about 40, 50 people yesterday at the press conference clamoring, asking, Jagguda, will you go? He said, I don't know. There, over there in Madras, Srinivasan, sir, will you go to ICC? What is this going on? The ICC meeting has been going for 50 years. Did we ever bother about it? No. It's a job of a journalist to ask certain proper questions. That day somebody asked Brian Lara, that was not a sports event, that was a commercial. Obviously the commercial fellow just wanted to create controversy. What do you think about Sourav Ganguly? Do you think he's a favorite? He said, yes, he's my favorite. Next day we read. Lara says, Ganguly is my favorite. But who asked that question? You asked that question. Don't fool the public like that.
In 5 years, what do you see happening?
What I said, we need to guide them and hope for the best. They must go. Today, when the game starts at 9:30, I find most of the young journalists coming at 1:32. And I really get annoyed. At 9:30 game, Ranji Trophy, I'm there at 7 o'clock. And because that is a discipline a journalist must have. Right. They don't have that. They're taking it lightly. And then I feel very, very sad that the catch is taken at point, and tomorrow, next day, the national press mentions a brilliant catch taken at long off. Where is long off and where is point? And then the players do come to the press box and ask, can you please show me yesterday you mentioned I was caught over there? Why I mentioned I was caught over there? Because then the person was not there. So that, I think, Clayton is very strict with his team, but I don't find others are strict with their team. They can come anytime, they're right, and they get away with it.
All right, on that note, it's time to throw the floor to the questions, if there are any.
I wanted to ask a question regarding journalism. As if today is a massive market that is like a massive competition among people. So do you think that it has shaken down the ethical writings of the newcomers of the journalism, as if the journalists are writing just to survive, as if the spicy news are coming, so that they can make a mark of themselves in the world of journalism?
I don't think so, because every young journalist coming in has a superior to answer to. So I don't think, I think you got the wrong impression of spicing it up. I don't think that happens.
My name is Manas. Actually, I want to ask a question, but before I ask a question, I want to put in a context. I have been observing, or rather following, a sports magazine by the name Sports Star since 1992, when Pakistan won the World Cup. Okay? Every month the issue comes, I used to read, it used to have in-depth things of what used to happen in the local Ranji matches. The entire match would follow, including the analysis. But times have changed, the analysis don't come, the Ranji trophies aren't covered in the magazine. So why has there been a change in the outlook of media towards the cricket as a whole, and not the glamour part? They've ignored the cricket part of it, and the impact has been on the glamour part of it. Because the Ranji matches are no more, followed in depth as it used to be in the early 90s.
I used to write for Sports Star. I write my column for the Hindu for many years. And in Hindu, perhaps is the only national newspaper which covers not only Ranji Trophy, but local matches in southern India.
It also covers, I remember, ball badminton leagues.
No, ball badminton, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
everywhere means you will find Hindu correspondent covering under 15 Tamil Nadu versus Karnataka game, because I was with Karnataka for 5 years. The same 5 years I was with the National Cricket Academy. And there is never you will find the sources and all that. That's not allowed. You got to go and watch over there, because you are then playing with a career of a youngster. So that sort of journalism is still there, but some people feel, no, Ranji Trophy is not that important because we don't have the stars. So again, perception.
Could it also be the volume of cricket that is increased by the international team? There used to be a home season, there used to be a Pongal test match when you talk about Chennai, there used to be specific dates when you had specific test match. So there used to be an honor of an occasion. But you find India playing pretty much non-stop. Even when there is domestic competition, Irani Cup, for example, there used to be a time when the stars of the Indian team used to take part. So gradually the stars moved away. And they left it with the next 11 to probably stake a claim. So could that be one of the reasons why, intentionally or unintentionally, the journalist said, okay, let's follow the stars, let's keep concentrating on that, and therefore what he said has gradually happened without even perhaps realizing it, and by the time you realized it, you said, not many people are crying about it, we'll go on with whatever we have.
That could be the case, but he's talking about the Sports Star magazine, which he has followed since 1992.
Sure, I mean, we all love the center page posters. I mean, we all used to stick it up. Oh yeah, everybody did that. Sports Star was the one there.
But one point should be considered is that a number of sports are covered by the magazine now.
Yeah.
You know, the EPL is getting more coverage than ever before. Formula One is getting more coverage than ever before.
Okay.
So you probably have to take that into consideration, and you've got to take space into consideration.
Oh, football is another thing. My son plays for Bombay in the Ranji Trophy, and all these Rohit Sharma, Abhishek Nair, they come home, and what do they watch? Football, Manchester United. I said, why don't you go and play football? Not a word they discuss about cricket. So this future generation is going to be turned football, not going to be cricket. Let Sachin Tendulkar say goodbye, and I want to see how many people go over there. Only we will find pigeons and crows at the Wankhede Stadium.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First one, the generation of cricketers that has gone past, we really feel that our childhood has ended after Sachin Tendulkar called it quits on test cricket. So how important was their experience in the county circle? They played some seasons in the county cricket, so the newer generation of Indian cricketers especially do not have that much experience playing in county cricket because they are bogged down by the IPL commitments primarily. And the second question is, from a journalist point of view, the Google journalist that you call, I myself have written a couple of opinion articles or stats articles which have been published on a couple of websites. How do we catch the eye of eminent journalists like Clayton or Makran?
How do they get a job really with you, Clayton?
Yeah.
That's the question.
It's quite a tough question what you've asked me. But how I would see it
Yeah, I
is,
tried it about 11 years back. I didn't get a job. So yeah.
you got a better job. Huh?
I don't know.
So basically my candidates come through certain journalism schools. A lot of colleges have journalism courses. They intern with me, and if we find them good enough, we offer them a job. But that's only if there is a vacancy. Otherwise, they continue doing their internship. So probably...
Amateur pieces, not on the job as such.
Yeah, but
More the
a
blogs.
lot of newspaper policies dictate that you take people who are on the staff. Due respects to your efforts and things. I mean, sometimes you can hit a real big wall.
I guess we're just about done. That's the indication I got. So if you want to personally ask Clayton, I'm sure Clayton will be willing to answer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the patient here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.